One of the most wonderful aspects of Star Wars is its technology. From terrifying superweapons to droids that are fluent in 6 million forms of communication, technology plays essential roles across the galaxy. However, it often feels like it isn't advancing much, even when thousands of years have passed between events. On the surface, the ships in Knights of the Old Republic don't look very different from those in the Clone Wars, and Jedi are always using lightsabers. The reality is a little bit more complicated and may surprise you. I've broken it down to 5 key aspects that were responsible for the technology's slow advancement. What's the opening line in every Star Wars movie? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Despite these words, fans fail to appreciate just how old the Star Wars universe is. Civilizations rise and fall over tens of thousands of years, with technology developing, evolving, and even regressing. Let's start this discussion by going back over 30,000 years before the Battle of Yavin to the height of the Rakatan Infinite Empire. The Rakata were a Force-sensitive species that brutally oppressed and dominated the galaxy. They remained canon despite appearing in the Knights of the Old Republic video game. However, we have to go back to the legend sources to expand on how these terrifying beings conquered the galaxy with their unique technology. According to the Tales of the Jedi comic book in the 90s, the Rakata adapted force-powered technology from another near-mythical species known as the Kwa. As I said, this is not part of the new canon, but as the Rakata do exist in contemporary lore, I think it helps to understand them better. The Kwa created the Infinity Gates, which allowed for near-instantaneous travel between 2 distant points in the galaxy. Later, the Rakata used their own force-powered technology for oppression and ruthless domination. However, they lacked the subtlety of the Kwa and even destroyed many of the Infinity Gates. During their relatively short reign, the Rakata terraformed planets to their image, enslaved populations, including humans, and even had self-repairing technology. The Starforge is the most iconic piece of Rakatan technology in Legends because it plays a key role in KOTOR. Basically, it draws energy from a nearby star and uses the dark side of the Force to convert this energy into matter. This was a potential game-changer, because it could operate continuously, allowing the Rakatans to produce infinite lines of ships, droids, and weapons. However, it also corrupts its users over time and manipulates them, so it was unsustainable. Cutting a long story short, the Force eventually abandoned the Rakata because they abused their power so much. The Starforge fell into dormancy in myth for thousands of years, until Darth Revan and Darth Malak uncovered the reality of its existence. All of this may seem quite esoteric, but it's crucial to understanding why technology in Star Wars appears to progress slowly. After the fall of the Rakata, the galaxy fell into a period of turmoil until the eventual formation of the Republic. This was a defining moment because the different pieces that made up this new political entity craved stability after millennia of turmoil. They made the conscious decision to develop technology for non-Force sensitive users. This was practical because there are so few Force users in the galaxy, and they're not always trustworthy. It may seem like there was a technological regression in this period when we look at what the Rakata achieved. However, this misses the point. It was actually an era of incredible innovation because the humans, Duros, and other beings had to find ways to achieve their visions without the Force. According to Legends, the development of Starship hyperdrive technology on Corellia and Duro was one of the most defining moments in Star Wars history. Previously, humans depended on sleeper ships to cross the galaxy, while the Essential Atlas mentions that Devaronians used dangerous tumble drivers. Corellians mass-produced this new hyperdrive tech, and within just 20 years, it was widespread across the core. When we talk about how slow technology progresses, it's essential to remember that these are incredibly advanced systems, and innovation can take generations. But when it finally occurs, it can spread and progress with unfathomable speed. Humanity existed for 300,000 years on Earth without electricity, and look at everything that's happened over the past century. Jedi and Sith holocrons are one of the most iconic forms of Force-powered technology, and reappear at various points in both canon and Legends. Essentially, holocrons are knowledge vaults with a gatekeeper. They're capable of withholding information and manipulating their users into making dangerous decisions. We see Darth Maul and Ezra Bridger use them in the Rebels TV show, while other canon appearances include the Darth Bane novel and the Fallen Order video game. However, there are a couple of reasons why this technology doesn't appear very often. Firstly, the Jedi Order deliberately limited their use because they believed they were institutionally dangerous. The Sith deliberately encouraged their use, but the Rule of Two meant this obviously wasn't widespread. Ultimately, force-power technology falls into a near-mythical status and niche use because most of the galaxy justifiably sees it as dangerous and impractical. The reality is that when we talk about technology in Star Wars, we're usually focusing on military hardware. I mean, the name of the franchise says it all, right? It's undeniable that conflict is one of the biggest drivers of change across the galaxy. However, there are a couple of key points to understand about this. First, technological development is often reactionary. Another key factor is that the biggest, most advanced systems are not always the most effective. Technological advancements aren't always visible on the surface. A great example is the Clone Wars era Venator-class Star Destroyer, which is often credited as the forerunner of the later Victory-class and Imperial-class Star Destroyers. However, it clearly has a very similar silhouette to the Centurion-class battlecruiser in Knights of the Old Republic. It may seem like they haven't developed much over thousands of years, but technological advancements aren't always visible on the surface. Military systems in Star Wars mirror the real world, in that they prefer proven designs. However, both the canon Revenge of the Sith Incredible Cross-Sections Guide and the Legends Complete Vehicles reveal some key systems differences between these capital ships. Firstly, let's define their roles. The Centurion class and its successor, the Harrower class battlecruiser, are battleships. The Essential Guide to Warfare tells us that the intention was to use them for head-to-head engagements like ships of the line in the Napoleonic Wars. This would never work during the Clone Wars or subsequent conflicts because capital ships effectively evolved into aircraft carriers. Putting technological differences to one side for a moment, the Venator carries 4 times more starfighters than a Harrower, so it would never get close. Even if it miraculously did, modern-era ships have the key advantage of far superior advanced shields, while the old Harrower only has thick armor. The Venator also benefits from enhanced turbo lasers that would be more than a match for the ancient battle systems. The Clone Wars were one of the most significant points in galactic history for technological innovation. It was the first time that the Republic had a unified standing army. The threat of the Separatists forced rapid innovation and standardization in just under 3 years. Standardization was only possible because they were using clones as soldiers rather than depending on troops from constituent worlds. Innovation occurred rapidly throughout the Clone Wars because the Republic was constantly reacting to new situations. They kept developing new armor and specialized vehicles for unique environmental conditions. We can see from Battlefront 2 that jungle warfare on Kashyyyk required different equipment than the industrial world of Megiddo. Even the standard Clone War weapons and armor rapidly progressed to more efficient models. Republic generals and weapons manufacturers recognized that Phase 1 armor had many vulnerabilities. It had poor performance in extreme climates and was more vulnerable to shrapnel and close-quarter conflicts. Later versions that we see in the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith were vastly improved and modular. This made them customizable according to individual clone preferences. There was more emphasis on performance over parade uniformity. Of course, this changes again when the Empire takes control of the galaxy. It may appear that technology regresses during this period because the Emperor and his military strategists focus on the projection of power through capital ships and superweapons, while placing less value on starfighters. However, this is a deliberate decision, and it doesn't mean their technology is weaker. Firstly, the Imperial-class Star Destroyer and later the Super-class Star Destroyer are the most advanced capital ships ever made. They're also capable of holding dozens, if not hundreds, of starfighters. The TIE Fighter is the most famous and notorious because of its lack of shields. However, this was a deliberate ploy to cut costs because the Empire considered its pilots disposable. The TIE, and later the TIE Interceptor, were supremely maneuverable and dangerous, so there's no lack of innovation in that design. The Empire also pivots away from the battlefield-proven Clone Wars era AT-TE Walker to the AT-AT because the latter is strategically superior for intimidation and planetary occupation. Remember, during the Clone Wars, the Republic was fighting massive battles to regain control of lost worlds. The Empire already ruled the galaxy, so it focused on psychological domination. That's also why they deviated back to standard armor for stormtroopers, even though their soldiers weren't as well trained or equipped as their clone predecessors. The Death Star is the Empire's most dramatic technological creation, but let's save that for later. Arguably, their most brilliant invention was the Interdictor-class cruiser. Its first on-screen appearance is in the Star Wars Rebels episode Stealth Strike. This game-changing ship has gravity wells that can pull ships out of hyperspace. Throughout the Legends novels, they're arguably the Empire's most feared weapon because they prevent their victims from escaping like rats caught in a trap. Again, they were a reactionary military advancement to prevent rebel cells from escaping and were extremely effective. There are a couple of other incredible examples of reactionary military progress in Legends that have yet to make it into canon. According to the Essential Guide to Warfare, one of the most notable was the Waymancy Storm about 7,800 years BBY. The hostile Sisters of the Machinesmith spent a millennium secretly studying and improving Republic technology. Then the forces of the signatories of Waymancy suddenly attack Republic military targets and civilian colonies, catching them unprepared. This existential threat to the Republic's survival forced rapid technological gains on the planet Axis. That's where scientists reverse-engineered Waymancy weaponry and developed new deflector shield technology and rapid-fire turbo laser technology. Later, in Legends, the Yuuzhan Vong invasion also triggers a major reaction from the Republic as it battles for the galaxy's survival. They face technology of a kind that they've never encountered or even imagined before. According to the new Jedi Order series, the Vong's tech is entirely organic with many immunities. Blasters, turbo lasers, and droid hacking are ineffective or useless against them. Initially, the Republic suffers catastrophic losses before adapting from energy weapons to physical projectiles that pierce organic armor. This may seem like a technological regression, but sometimes the simple solution is the best one. Let's wrap up this section on battlefield technology by looking at personal weapons. It may seem like blasters and lightsabers have remained the same forever, but this isn't true. In A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi famously describes the lightsaber as an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. Their longevity is remarkable, but that's also because they served as tools of discipline for Jedi, as well as symbols of their role in the galaxy. In short, there was no need for them to change. However, they faced new obstacles during the Clone Wars because the role of the Jedi evolved from peacekeepers to battlefield commanders. Suddenly, they encountered new threats like shielded destroyer droids and electrostaff-wielding Magna Guards. Previously, few beings had the capacity to protect themselves against lightsabers, such as the Beskar-wearing Mandalorians. Blasters are the most ubiquitous weapon across the galaxy. It may seem like they haven't evolved much, but the reality is that the technology continuously makes massive leaps during separate conflicts. Contrary to popular belief, blasters don't fire lasers, but instead convert gas into energy bolts. Canon doesn't provide much evidence about its development. However, in Legends, we learn that the gas-converting blaster, as we know it, first emerged during the Mandalorian Wars. I recommend checking out the Essential Guide to Weapons and Technology. It's not canon anymore, but it does provide some fascinating insights into how these blasters replaced pulse-wave firearms and slug throwers. The main technological progression after the Mandalorian Wars was improving the rate of fire and power of the weapons. These are the main changes that occur during the Clone Wars. Different factions also experimented with different types of gas that changed the energy's bolt's color. The cheapest and most common gas produced red bolts, but this was less powerful than the Clone Army's blue or the Umbaran's green. It's easy to say that technology advanced slowly during the High Republic, but this isn't entirely fair. Military developments definitely stalled, but that's primarily because the galaxy enjoyed its longest era of sustained peace during this era. Sure, there were minor conflicts, but nothing that demanded militarism on the scale we see in the likes of the Clone Wars. It's unfair to judge a society only by the size of its army and weapons. If we look deeper, it's clear the Republic did make many social advances. One of the first key areas where technology clearly advanced was in health. This was slow, but there's a good reason for that. There are literally thousands of species in the galaxy with different genetic makeups. The Clone Wars visual guide explicitly states that the Republic depended on droids to automate surgery and healthcare. We see this in Revenge of the Sith when Anakin undergoes life-saving surgery after suffering horrendous injuries on Mustafar. Both Luke's and Anakin's prosthetic arm procedures are also administered by droids. Meanwhile, in the Clone Wars show, we see droid medbays on ships and troopers receiving treatment. A Kruntan midwife droid also delivers Luke and Leia in the Polis Massa base at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Droid use was scalable and extremely efficient because their programming enabled them to handle many species without limitations. Widespread access to Bacta was one of the Republic's biggest achievements. Originating from the planet Thifera, Bacta was a healthcare game-changer. Luke's Bacta tank treatment in The Empire Strikes Back shows how it can help patients recover from serious trauma. During the Clone Wars, troopers also used Bacta patches and immersion tanks to heal their injuries. This technology wasn't easy to develop because Bacta is limited to a single world. In Book 4 of Michael A. Stackpole's Legends X-Wing series, The Bacta War, we see how vulnerable the galaxy is when trade monopolies occur. The Bacta access is cut off. Bacta drastically increases the chances of surviving severe injuries. Other incredible technological developments include the holocom and hyperspace mapping. The Republic succeeded in making the galaxy smaller. Over time, it gradually became possible to communicate instantly with far-off worlds. This, combined with enhanced hyperspace mapping, made the Republic a much safer and more interconnected place. Droid labor also plays a crucial role in every aspect of society, from the moisture farms on Tatooine to the mouse droids on starships. These also became more specialized over time as developers constantly innovated and enhanced previous models. The evolution of the R-Series astromech droid shows how quickly this technology could progress. R2-D2 was a top-of-the-range model during the events of the Phantom Menace. However, the R2 series is superseded by newer models from the R3 to R7 series in the decades up to Return of the Jedi. Another massive leap takes place with the next-generation BB series in the sequel trilogy. This is a total redesign with rolling spherical locomotion that made them more agile and suitable for the sleeker ships of the Resistance era. This technology has advanced across half a century, which is much faster than many fans may realize. One of the most curious aspects of the Star Wars universe is the apparent lack of artificial intelligence. We've seen in the real world how quickly AI can develop, so why isn't it a key part of George Lucas's galaxy? Droids are everywhere in Star Wars, but we very rarely see autonomous examples of AI. However, there are some very good reasons for this. The galaxy justifiably fears free artificial intelligence because it almost always turns hostile. In legend sources, there are hints that a great droid rebellion took place in far ancient times against organics. This is supported in the Essential Guide to Droids and explains why there's always been a cultural fear of autonomous droids ever since. Later, in the Knights of the Old Republic comic books, we learn about the Scourge. This was a self-propagating droid virus during the Mandalorian Wars that caused chaos and destruction. Neither of these events is currently canon, but negative attitudes towards droids remain consistent. In Episode 4, we get our first hint when Obi-Wan and Luke enter the Mos Eisley Cantina. Wooher the barman immediately tells them, "We don't serve their kind here." Droids killed his parents during the Clone Wars, so this isn't surprising. There has never been confirmation of a full-scale droid rebellion in canon, but the entire galaxy takes steps to prevent this. It's common to routinely wipe their memories to prevent them from developing personalities and quirks. 3PO undergoes at least 3 memory wipes in canon, including a temporary one in The Rise of Skywalker. Meanwhile, droid owners often fit their droids with restraining bolts to prevent them from roaming freely. The Separatist armies provide one of the most extreme examples of mass droid control. Their battle droids are famously dumb and incapable of adapting to changing situations without explicit orders. But that was for a very good reason. The Separatist command deliberately engineered their armies to prevent uprisings and a potential loss of control. It was an intentional strategic decision that actually makes sense, even if it cost them dearly at times. In The Phantom Menace, Anakin destroys the Neimoidian droid command ship and immediately stalls their entire force. During the Clone Wars, we frequently see what happens when the Republic destroys Separatist command relays. There are a few dramatic examples of autonomous droids across the Star Wars universe. L337 is one of the most notorious examples in Solo. She's actively agitating for a full-scale droid rebellion, proving that droids can develop a ruthless, independent streak. Ultimately, she's destroyed, but she proves the potential threat droids present to the galaxy. The droid Gotra is an in-canon example of a free droid movement. This criminal collective is playing the long game. It includes all kinds of droids that have successfully avoided memory wipes and represents everything the galaxy's afraid of. I think this fear is totally justifiable. The best example is in Tales of the Bounty Hunters. In one story, the bounty hunter droid IG-88 uploads his consciousness into the second Death Star and is about to take control of it, moments before its destruction. He's also able to replicate his consciousness into other droids. Yes, it's a legend story, but it's still terrifying to think about. Even on a micro level, there are many examples of characters resisting automated systems and AI. In both canon and legends, Han Solo actively resists external control of the Millennium Falcon. During The Force Awakens, he complains that the ship was flown improperly and immediately reverts to manual control. It's taken even further in Legends novels like A.C. Crispin's Han Solo trilogy, where he strips out remote command receivers. His fellow Corellian, Wedge Antilles, is also deeply suspicious of slaved ships in the X-Wing series. Harrison Dula and Poe Dameron provide similar canon examples because they both support pilot autonomy and resist external control systems. R2 and Chopper are two of the most fascinating examples of autonomous droids in Star Wars because they're with the good guys. Unlike most astromechs, they go years without receiving memory wipes, so they develop personality quirks and even emotional bias. R2 has a trickster-like personality but can be jealous and sarcastic. Chopper is incredibly dark and violent for an astromech, even keeping a kill count. Both droids are extremely loyal to their owners, who condone and enable their behavior, but there's no denying that they're outliers in the galaxy. AI technology in Star Wars doesn't progress because it's just too risky. In Legends, we have more examples of this on a mass scale, from Centerpoint Station to the Starforge. These superweapons could essentially plunge the galaxy into endless chaos and destruction. Almost every major decision in Star Wars is driven by sentient organic beings because droids are simply too dangerous to depend on. I think I've made it pretty clear that technology often advances much quicker than people. However, if we look at it from the other side, it's clear that there are many barriers to development. Firstly, the galaxy is massive, but only a few planets have the capacity to provide technological developments. There are thousands of worlds like Dantooine, Lothal, and Jakku, which simply aren't capable of galaxy-changing innovation. For example, only a minuscule number of planets can support shipyards, arguably the key industrial centers in Star Wars. Kuat, Corellia, Fondor, and Mon Cala are some of the most significant producers of capital starships in the galaxy. They were of immense strategic importance with the potential to make or break a government. According to the canon Complete Vehicles, shipyards required almost absurdly specific conditions. There must be massive orbital slips, dedicated hyperspace lanes, and specialized industrial ecosystems. They need immediate access to construction materials like Durasteel and orbital infrastructure like dry docks. Shipyards are like unicorns in the galaxy across the galaxy. Only the core worlds and governments have the economic muscle to fund massive projects. The Death Star is a prime example because it required unprecedented amounts of Durasteel and Kyber crystals. We see in Rogue One how challenging it was to extract and source these materials. They also had to gather enough manpower to build it. They tried to get around this by using slave labor, but even that isn't entirely free. Then, even all of the Empire's wealth and power couldn't change the reality that only one man in the galaxy had the talent to make it work. Galen Erso was the only known human scientist who knew how to scale Kyber energy safely. It's possible that the Empire's anti-alien bias held them back here, but the movie reveals that Oron Krennic tried to find the right person for years. Then, after decades of scheming, trillions of credits, and billions of deaths, a single X-Wing missile blows it all up. Even the Empire's small-scale projects show how expensive it is to develop technology. They made a conscious decision to go for quantity over quality when building starfighters. However, Sinar Fleet Systems does develop enhanced models. Darth Vader famously flies a shielded TIE Advanced Fighter against Red Squadron in Episode 4. Meanwhile, Grand Admiral Thrawn is the driving force behind the TIE Defender in Rebels. This enhanced starfighter has superior weapons, shields, and enhanced survivability for pilots. Imperial doctrine resists his efforts, but eventually he gets his squadrons. Cost and lack of practicality are also why we rarely see cloaking devices. They're massively expensive and have serious limitations. The Clone Wars episode Cat and Mouse proves that ships can't fire when cloaked and require very precise timing. This means they're only suitable for very specialized missions. Even in canon, they're not perfect at hiding ships. It's impossible to prevent hyperspace wake detection or particle scattering. Widespread use of cloaked ships would cause opponents to more frequently scan for these anomalies. The Sith Eternal Fleet on Exegol in The Rise of Skywalker uses a cheaper and more efficient method to hide their ships: environmental masking. Secret navigation and sensor interference effectively conceal their entire fleet. The Ghost also sometimes use sensor masking in Rebels to great effect. Another key aspect is that not everyone wants to share their technology in Star Wars. This obviously prevents another species from taking it and developing it further. The events of the Waymancy supremacy show that maybe this is not such a bad idea. Take the Kaminoans, who refuse to share their clone technology even with the Republic, their clients. This gave them a monopoly on the industry and massive influence, despite their relatively small population. The eventual destruction of Tipoca City and its laboratories was an irreplaceable loss. Decades later, during the events of the Rise of Skywalker, we see how this ironically forces Palpatine to use much cruder methods to clone himself. In the original trilogy, the Mon Calamari are also the only ones capable of flying their immense battle cruisers because of protectionist policies and species-specific systems. Species as diverse as the Chiss and the Gungans guard their secrets jealously because they know it could be essential to their survival. Finally, let's finish with a major out-of-universe reason. Star Wars is space fantasy, not hard sci-fi. Everybody watching this video probably knows how George Lucas drew heavily from Western and samurai influences to create this amazing universe. Even as it expanded, the different creators who contributed wanted to maintain a sense of familiarity and continuity. That's one of the main reasons why there are almost always lightsabers in Star Wars media, regardless of the era. When we watch Star Wars, we want to be immersed in that world. We want it to feel like Star Wars, and too many glossy technological changes would take that magic away.